2 a.m. with Jason. I hope you're doing well. The topic tonight's a little interesting, we shall say. Little history lesson on one of the themes of this Luke chapter 20 when it talks about uh, the spies come in and say, should we pay taxes to Caesar? Jesus says, show me a coin. Give to Caesar what is Caesar's, give to God what is God's. We're talking about taxes because, as Benjamin Franklin said, in this world, nothing can be said to be certain except death and taxes. Um, they've been around for thousands of years, and for thousands of years, people are trying to get out of paying them and have not liked paying them. And just going to take a look real quick here. One of my favorite things of how people were taxed is the Nilometer, which is what they used in Egypt. If the river flooded at peak season a little deeper, then they got extra, you know, fertilizer, we shall say, from the river, which made the crops grow well, so higher tax. When it didn't flow as high, less tax. So it's not a bad deal there. It would eventually break down and lead to their demise. Sometimes it was a flat fee, depending on your wealth. Sometimes you'd have to come around. Someone would come around and say, "We collected for the church today," and then later said, for the state church. Sometimes they'd say, "This is for the government." Sometimes this is for the road to be fixed, or this is for the stuff. And you had to pay each time, and if you didn't, then there's different consequences for whatever. Sometimes it was money. Other times, thank you, Ottoman Turks. It was your firstborn son. They formed the Janissaries with that. You can look up on your own later, but it's a pretty crazy story. Uh, Sometimes it's based on residency. Because you live here, you have to pay us. Um, and I know that's still the way it is here. You live here, pay us $5. So, whatever. Sometimes it leads to rebellion. The American Revolution, the French Revolution, that's got a little bloodier, I guess, with the whole guillotine thing. Also, good old Gandhi with the salt tax. In India, they said, England didn't learn from the American Revolution, didn't learn from the French Revolution. He says, you need to pay for your salt. He says, I'm going to go make my own salt. And they threw him in jail. He said, I'm going to starve myself. Leads to India's bloodless revolution. And so we look here and say these taxes, you know, like the Magna Carta even, it rewrote how the government dealt with people. So taxes are important. Um, it also, though, is said to be the cause of the fall of the Egyptian, Roman, Spanish, and Aztec empires. So it can lead to some problems here. There are a couple ways that people did rebel. Some just refused to pay. Some lit things on fire. Some went around and killed the tax collectors and burned their houses to the ground. One of the most interesting ones was the jack-o'-lance, jack-lance, like jack-o'-lantern kind of things. In England, they dressed in blackface and put on dresses and went around burning down parts of the town, especially where the tax collectors lived. Um, One of my favorite though is Henry David Thoreau. We'll get to him in a minute or so. Consequences. So if you don't pay your taxes, what are the consequences? Well, uh, the Jews said, we're not paying the temple tax to the Romans because we don't believe in the Roman temples. You shouldn't do that. And so in 70 AD, the Romans came and burnt and destroyed the Jewish temple and said, you want to mess with our temples? That's what we're going to do for yours. In France in the 1700s, it mainly led to death to the rebels. Prison also is a common theme, and there's a variety of reasons that people have for not paying taxes. The Hutterites, one of my favorites, they refused to pay for war or for capital punishment. In fact, the quote says, "For war and killing and bloodshed we give nothing, but not out of wickedness or arbitrariness, but out of fear for God, that we might not be partakers in strange sin." They said basically, listen, like, we care about God more than this, so we're not paying the tax. It didn't go so well for them. But Quakers also refused to pay, and they had to pay money for the state church, and they said, we don't want to do this. And then they said, you know what, we also don't want to pay for this and for that and for this when it came to war and paying for the supplies for the soldiers and things. And so they got in trouble for that. Um, Again, my favorite my favorite though is Henry David Thoreau, and he says, I'm really against this Mexican American War. It's been going on for 6 years, and I'm just not paying this poll tax. Now, the irony is, he was not paying this poll tax, and it was a local tax. It had nothing to do with the Mexican American War, because I'm not paying it because of that. and his own ignorance, he anyway. So one day, finally, the guy just says, you've been paid it for. I'm putting you in jail. So they put him in jail, and he's like, ha ha, now I got you where I want you. Except um, an anonymous, mysterious woman came, paid his tax for him, and says, hey, you got to go. And he's like, no, 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 but I don't want to leave. I want to make a civil disobedience act. Like, I want to be a martyr for this. And they're like, you got to go. The tax is paid. Um, so I'm not sure what happened the next year. There's no, doesn't go beyond that. He wrote his civil disobedience after this incident, which would be used by lots of other people. But it's just, he was complaining about a tax that wasn't actually a tax of that what he thought it was. And I also know some Christians who say, I only support 83% of what the government's doing with my money, and so I'm not only going to pay them 83% of it. Um, Now, Jesus had the best response. Jesus said, give to Caesar what is Caesar's, give to God what is God's. And as Christians, we often focus on that. Yes, we should give to God what is God's. We should give him our lives. The very breath in our lungs is God's, and we need to use it for his glory. But a lot of times we also skip that first part about paying the taxes. Should we pay taxes? It's our duty to, as a citizen here. Now, I know our kingdom is not here on earth. It is in heaven, but we're still living here. And if Jesus said for his disciples and them to pay taxes, it's still our obligation as well. It's our obligation to make our communities better, to make our states better, to make our country a place that is fair, and that we can be shown to other people that, hey, this is what can happen here. It's important for us. And I know that for a long time, different denominations, Church of the Brethren being one of them, have kind of stayed out of politics. And at the same time, though, James 4:17 says, anyone who knows the right thing to do and doesn't do it sins. So what do? How can we have to, number one, be informed. We have to know what's going on. And number two, I do believe we need to be involved. Um, it is not the Christian thing to do to sit back and complain about things like taxes uh, and not try to make a difference. Now, we need to be praying for our leaders. We need to be praying for the decisions they make. But we also need to be paying our taxes and trying to say, if you don't like that tax, okay, so what are you doing to make that better? My little history lesson on taxes and whatnot. There's so much interesting tax history, and it's still relevant today. There's still so many issues going on with taxes that it's important for us to be knowledgeable and to be able to invest and say, hey, God, for the time that we are here, how can we be your light even in the political arena, even in political conversations? How can we be your light in those places? It's hard. It's messy. We have to lead with the idea that, God, you are God and you have put us in this place. How can we honor you with what we're doing and saying? But it's not an excuse for us to just say, well, peace out, I don't want to pay this. There's no place for that. So anyway, this is one man who doesn't like paying taxes, but I'm going to do, as James said, what we know we need to do. So take care. Till next time.